All right. Well, thank you all for coming to today's technical committee meeting. As usual, we are operating under the Open Infra Code of Conduct, and we've got the agenda up, which I'm going to go ahead and get to. We did have some action items last meeting, so let's follow up on action items. And looking at the meeting, it looks like we had 3 action items. The first one listed is G-Man had an action item to create leaderless projects Etherpad with information about leaderless projects.
Yeah, so I created that. I pasted the link in Hierarchy. I'll paste in the chat too. So there are 12 leaderless projects. Out of them, three are out without candidates. So those are definitely we need to worry about. And 6 are with late candidacy, which I think should be okay. Their gate health is okay and PTL is active, so we can just have them appointed as a PTL. Other 3, which is really concern, even the more concern I feel than no candidate, are the invalid candidacy. So we had 3 projects, EC2-API, Monasca, and OpenStack Ceph, where the PTL nomination and they are not the active project contributor. That's why their candidacy is invalid. Yes.
Do you mind if we hit the pause button on that and we have an actual topic for this later, and then we can just knock out the other action items? Okay. It's like it'll be in like 5 minutes, and it'll just help.
Yeah, we can discuss on that topic.
So. Thanks. It helps me if we go down in order, because I will revisit it later otherwise. The other action items that were there, thank you very much for following up on that. I appreciate it. Christy, you had an action item to work on updating releases.openstack.org to reflect the new unmaintained branch policy, which I believe we were seeing as a prerequisite to enforcing said policy.
Yeah, it's that, and updating the project team guide, especially the stable branches page. I am working on those. I've been unable to prioritize them in my work items up until this week, but this week I will get to both of those.
Okay. One question I had about this is that we are about to start the Caracal cycle. So I feel like we'll need to take action on this soon. Do you consider a part of that action item sort of like a run book for actually going through and performing these actions, or just updating the documentation so that we feel like we can, start executing on that?
This is updating the documentation. The run book is pretty well described in the resolution, and the one item that is not defined we have talked about, which is how to handle the opt-in process. And we talked about the releases team making patches to the repos, to the releases repo with regards to EOLing all of the specific project branches, and the PTLs or the liaisons for the unmaintained branch had to -1 that. So it's just capturing this in writing, and there's a lot of writing involved, especially in that page, which I'm not very quick and good at doing, and prioritizing that with regards to other work items. But this week I'm getting to that.
Yeah,
I will time box myself, and whatever I have done by the end of tomorrow, I will push as a draft, and then hopefully that can get some early feedback.
Yeah, that sounds good. If it does look like we might be at risk of not completing this action item again, just give a heads up early, and maybe someone else can find the time. We all have schedules that sort of bounce around. So yep. Thank you for that. The last action item was for me to contact the OOO DPLs to determine their preferred intentions for OOO maintenance going forward. That email got sent first thing Monday morning, which is a little bit late, but so I apologize for that, and I haven't gotten a response yet. And that will be a useful input for implementing and deciding what to do with those projects moving forward. And as requested by other members of the TC, I did make sure to mention that maintaining that would include resolving Zool config errors on any O related repos that were necessary for their CI.
Sorry, I missed last weekend, have not read the thing, so I am asking a dumb question, but I thought that they stated their intentions pretty clearly. So I assume that there's something that's in question.
I believe, and this is a summary, please look at the logs yourself to get everyone's take correctly rather than the J-filtered summary. But my understanding of it was that there was concern that as written, the new unmaintained policy may, as written, make the special exception we had made for O untenable unless we revise the policy or similar. And so instead of going down the path of a hypothetical to allow that, we decided it was best to know what they actually would like to do and build around that, at least as a target to understand how the policy applies, rather than all the members of the TC conjecturing about all possible outcomes. Let's focus on the one that they want and look at the policy and see if they can reconcile, what has to be done for that to happen. I believe that one of the things indicated was that they would not be eligible to move to an unmaintained branch as long as they still had projects that were Zool configured, being one of the big items there. So it's sort of just a matter of trying to make sure they're still on board, renewing that from 6 months ago, that they would like that to continue to be the status quo. And then we'll operate based off of that and see what to do. I honestly don't have strong opinions about how the situation's resolved. I do have strong opinions about us not spending time talking about situations that may or may not exist. So,
yeah, the thing, I think the easy path for the O, we can make it more and more complex, right? To clean up retirement, because and the simple way is we know that that's going away. Just the stable wallaby is there. So what we can do and it's in the DPL model. We don't need to worry about PTL and all. So what I see the simple path is stable wallaby going away, end of life. We just retire the O and that's it. So we don't need to ask like them, if you want to maintain stable wallaby more, you have to do that, you have to do that. It's just going end of life. That's what we have defined policy. That's it. And immediately after stable wallaby's end of life, that's what they committed, that after that they are not going to maintain. So we will retire the O completely without spending much time on that. So that's my thinking.
I believe that is a one potential likely outcome, but I would strongly prefer tabling this discussion at least for a week and see if we get a response from the O DPLs. And if not, we can address it in any event. But I would like to give them more than a couple of days to respond about their intentions, because I would rather
I'm not
have conflict if it's not necessary.
Exactly. I'm not saying don't contact them. I'm saying whatever policy we have for unmaintained, and in that policy, stable wallaby is going to be end of life, right? So we don't need to take O as exceptional to not do the end of life for stable wallaby. That's what my point. It's just, we are like, as once Christy will define all these policy in our documentation, we will have that, okay, stable wallaby is going to be end of life. So that's it. We can contact O, we can inform them, but why we will take that as an exception for O and modify our policies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have that debate when we get there. For now, my preferred action, unless there's a strong feeling otherwise, is that we'll take an agenda item for next meeting specifically related to this. I'll make sure that the O DPLs know that it's coming, and we will talk about it one way or the other next. So
perfect. And like, I'm not saying like retiring now. Obviously, we have PTZ also, so that time definitely we can discuss, and that will take time. So, but that's my opinion. Like,
so we can definitely do a reading of the policy that may match what they are doing, because as I'm reading the policy, there isn't anything that specifically forbids anyone from still maintaining wallaby, because it says all current branches are eligible for unmaintained, all current EM branches, and it only says that you need continuity between the branch that you're maintaining and releases, and they haven't really made a release. So we can be generous, but I say we just kill it if they don't feel strongly about it.
Well, more information will definitely be a good input to that. And quite frankly, if we do come to that decision in a meeting, I want to make sure that we have communicated well ahead of time that it's going to be an agenda item, so that any interested parties have time to go. This is just like, I like the communication flow. I think will help. And I would like to move on if that's it. That was our last action item. And we're taking an item for additional discussion on this next week, with hopefully representatives from OOO at least having input, if not actively being here. So next up is the gate health check. Is there any information on the health of the gate?
I wanted to start the gate health with a previous action item, since we just came from action items. I know that Christy was going to look at the Keystone massive database usage thing. It's been a month or two. I haven't heard anything about that yet, but I just want to make sure that we don't drop that investigation. And I guess Slavik was going to look at Neutron as well.
There were a lot of things that fell off my plate in the last month, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to pick up everything.
Okay, so still on the plan?
Still on the plate.
Can we? I'm not sure we ever recorded it as a real action item, but if we could, I think that would probably be good, because I have certainly not remembered to.
The other thing I would comment is that and having a little bit of investigation beforehand would definitely be a good input to this, as this might be a good thing to bring up at TC community leaders interactions as well, to see if there are other members of the Keystone project or people who rely on Keystone, maybe someone with database knowledge who would have a particular interest in this item, because I don't necessarily think it has to fall specifically to one of us, even though,
no, Christy just said he was going to. Yeah. Oh. And that's fine too if we poke somebody else in Keystone to look at it. I just, it was brought up here, and because it affects all of us, and it also related to Neutron kind of, and Christy was gonna, I don't know that Christy said that he was going to do it himself. He might have pulled some strings so that some minion would do it for him, but
I wish. I don't have any minions.
Well, anyway, I just want to make sure we don't drop it, because like things in the gate are, to move on, are looking pretty good lately, I think. And a big problem that we have is we identify all of these issues. We get the gate healthy enough that it isn't everybody's primary problem, and then 6 months later, those same things that we identified that we never fixed are back on the table. And I just would like to try to avoid that here.
So would y'all both Christy and Dan, would y'all be okay with a framing of, let's have an action to investigate this and have some information, if not a resolution, in time for the PTG, so that if it's found, there's information there we can take? That gives 2 or 3 weeks, which is probably helpful given the that it's there. I'll put it in as an action item on the meeting so that we can check status of it every week leading up to it. But it seems to me like, PTG is a very good wall to set for this, to figure it out by then, to at least talk about moving forward, so that planning for Caracal, any teams that might be impacted could plan to help improve their database performance. Because, maybe Christy will come up with something that'll be awesome and we can apply across multiple projects. But
I think this is pretty Keystone specific, but I definitely agree that, trying to get something identified before PTG would be good. I'm also not sure that this is really necessarily the best thing for the leader interaction, just because there's a lot of leaders and plenty of other interaction to go on. And my uninformed, unbiased opinion is that these two things are Neutron and Keystone specific. So it would probably be better to not make 20 other leaders sit around and listen to woes. But yeah, PTG, one of the sessions.
If there is concern about Neutron as well, it might be worthwhile making sure it hits the list as well, that we're looking at that, because that would help visibility with it a little bit.
Slavik's been, I think.
So yeah, I was investigating this database queries in Neutron. We found one way to improve that, So we went down for about, I don't remember now exactly, but for one type of queries, we went down for about, I don't remember, 10 or 20,000 of calls during the CI job, or even more. So about 10% of all of the calls which were done, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But other than that, I was working on that with Rodolfo, and we really couldn't find anything else what we could lower. There was a lot of queries like rollbacks or select one to ping database or things like that, which are not even really Neutron things, but SQL Alchemy or OsloDB and things like that. So yeah, I was doing that investigation. We did some improvement, but with Rodolfo, we couldn't find any other.
If we need to filter those out, I thought I had filtered stuff like that out. I could be wrong, but we could filter that out of the stat as well, if that would help. But the problem is all of the services should be doing that. So when your numbers are an order of magnitude higher than the other service.
Yes, but I was analyzing logs from Tempest jobs, and Neutron was also processing like twice that many API calls that any other process like Nova or something else. So Neutron was doing more API requests and more database calls and things like that. So it's not like that was the only thing. That everything else was the same, had the same numbers.
Maybe, yeah, maybe part of the problem is also that there's some efficiency gains to be had between Nova and Neutron, so that we're not hitting Neutron so hard, for like, lots of ports or something like that. And maybe the number is, I'm not saying that the number is wrong. The number seems way too high to me compared to other projects, but that doesn't mean that it's a problem in Neutron necessarily. It could be Nova, showing the same port 1,000 times every call or something like that. But anyway, so Jay, I think you were asking, or you were saying that we didn't have a surplus of topics for the TC stuff.
We have not had a surplus of topics documented for the PTG yet. I believe the topics exist, but none of them have been written down in any of the documentation yet. And
so optimistic.
Well, I am taking the approach of that. Quite frankly, I'm trying very hard to not take action items or to say yes to work that I'll be unable to perform myself or champion. And I'm taking a similar approach with PTG items for the technical committee. If it's an important thing that we need to work on, it's going to take one of us championing it over the course of the 6-month cycle for it to make progress anyway. So my hope was, and this was something I was going to definitely speak to in open discussion, would be that, TC members would take items that they felt were important, that they had some context on, and champion those in order to add them to the PTG agenda, and preferably even, at that point, be a leader in that discussion, even if not maybe directly the moderator.
Yeah. So I'm not sure that, if the surplus that you think exists but is unyet represented might be more important, but if not, maybe it would be worth not putting this in the leaders bucket and instead just having a cross-project performance starting with Keystone and Neutron, high database score numbers, something like that, and do it that way, so anybody that's interested in that kind of thing, and hopefully at least these two guys plus some backup minions. I'm sure that Slavic has minions. I'm surprised that Christy doesn't, but anyway, just an idea.
I like that idea. I mean, is there general consensus behind that? Are there other people here who would participate in such a session?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. I mean, the QA definitely can also be in that cross project thing.
If we will have such session, I would strongly advise to invite Mike Bayer from SQL Alchemy. His input may be very, very useful there.
his input may be not what I want to hear, but you're probably right. Like, Nova should stop doing this. Sure, that probably is true, but I don't want to hear it.
So I'm going to put down an action item that's going to be for me to ensure we have a cross-project performance session at the PTG centered around database usage patterns. And I'm going to ensure that SQL Alchemy and Oslo DB maintainers and invested parties in that ecosystem at OpenStack, like I'm thinking Stephen Finn when I think OpenStack for that, get invited to that just to make sure that we have, all the appropriate brains on hand.
I would put it Keystone and Neutron in the title just to make it clear that the topic is, this time around trying to be somewhat centered on these specifically identified issues. Because if we just go randomly talking about database performance, crazy people are going to show up and say we should be using Mongo and blah, 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 and that will solve all of our problems, which also may be true, but is not really like,
we totally should have written this in to use Cassandra. So I'll add to that it's a specific focus on strangely high query counts from Neutron and Keystone reported during DevStack jobs. Is that a accurate description? Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for that. I have put that action item down. Is there anything else we want to talk about for the gate before I hand it back over to G-Man to talk about our project leadership or lack of it with some of them? All right, leaderless projects.
Yeah, so I think, everyone have the Etherpad link. It's in the chat also, and I pasted before on IRC. So the summaries, we have 12 projects as a leaderless, and 3 of them are without candidate, Mistral, Rally, and Skyline. So Skyline, I don't know, it's just a communication issue or something, but Skyline, as you know, it's a new project and it's in the, I think, emerging project list. So, okay, these 3 are like without candidate. Rest of them 6 are late candidacy, like they missed the election deadline or something. So those 6 are easy to get appointed. Other 3, which are really concerned, is EC2 API, Monasca, and OpenStack Ceph. They are invalid candidacy, and these invalid candidacy seems very interesting for me to be discussed and to avoid, spending our time on every cycle. 3 PTL candidates, those were invalid because they are not APC, active project contributor, and all of 3 are the previous PTLs. So, like we have been talking about many times, we just appoint the PTL, they just show up during the PTL appointment, and after that they just disappear. Then they come up in the next election, they show up again as a PTL nomination, and that's happening with these 3 projects. So previous PTL, they were not active contributor in project. They have never any commit submitted, in the project. I'm not sure how much they are reviewing, how much Git health they are checking of those projects. But these 3 projects are really a concern, and we should take action whether we should continue with this project or we should clearly communicate with these incoming PTLs about their responsibility so that next time it doesn't happen the same way. So other thing is you can add your input, like how you see their Git health or what you see, your opinion about their PTL appointment. Either it's a late candidacy, so definitely it's not like if any candidate volunteer to be PTL, they can be PTL. It's like TC has to analyze whether they will be able to maintain the project or not. Because we have seen a lot of work done by infra team, QA, TC also fixing Zool error and a lot of things, right? So we have to start filtering all these, inactive but not listed inactive project. So put your opinion there. We don't need to take like any hard decision in this meeting or something. Maybe definitely once we have all the feedback and once we communicate to the PTL if they are interested or not interested in the PTZ, we can, have a discussion and conclude the things. And if before the PTZ, if anyone showing volunteering for PTL, like James for Sunbeam, so he just missed the deadline. So they can propose the PTL appointment. We can definitely discuss on Garrett also. So those flow we can continue during the Garrett flow and all, but in PTZ definitely we need to discuss about each of these leftover projects.
Yeah, I do recommend that TC members, especially with the 3 previous PTLs who are ineligible, do take significant notice and research on those PRs to appoint the PTL. So I appreciate your work in documenting all of this, G-Man. I know Frickler's not here. He's put some comments in that Etherpad. I appreciate that work a lot.
He really added detailed about great health, Zool config and all. I'm not saying like we will just retire all these 3 projects, but a serious discussion will be a good indication to those PTL spending some good time in this cycle at least. So that if they don't have time, then definitely they will let us know, like, okay, I cannot spend time on project health, I cannot fix the project gate, I cannot fix the Zool configure. Then definitely we have to see whether who can maintain those projects or not. Because just pointing a PTL is not, it's not for just a namesake, right? So it's something work they have to do.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I personally will struggle with in reviewing those changes, regardless if conversation happens or not, is that inherently, you know, being a PTL is a position of trust. You know, the infra teams are trusting you to fix your jobs and make your releases happen.
Exactly.
The users are trusting that if we say something's maintained, that it is, and if they've broken that trust once before, it's going to be an uphill battle to regain it, I would suspect. Even though we've all been in situations where time is an issue and things like that, if a user is given broken or lower quality software as a result, they're not necessarily going to care so much about the reason. But that will we will get more information and talk about that at the PTG. If those PTLs who are invalid candidates do have interest in continuing as a PTL and OpenStack, I would think that a big step that they could take would be if we had a PTG session about it, that if they were willing to show up and talk about what that means, like something like, I almost think of it as, you know, before I became a people manager at a corporation, they made me sit through like a 30-minute video. Like perhaps we could come up with something like that on the appointed PTL side of like, here's a recurring PTG session we have. If you're an appointed or first-time PTL, we're going to go over the list of responsibilities for the PTLs and make sure that you fully understand them so that a better job gets done. Like maybe education can help. I don't know, but the status quo is not great here, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's good idea. At least for these invalid candidacy, we should have a like must show for them like this. You should come up and actually see what we need as a PTL, right? So that's a good idea. And
what about releases for especially for Monasca? Because I'm looking at it and it says that this Etherpad says that gate health is failing. There is no action. There is candidate for PTL, but even this candidate, this previous PTL, wasn't actively maintaining this project in last cycle. So how we release that in Bobcat, or there is no release because I did not check. So I mean, there is a couple of red flags for me, which points to basically deprecate this project and mark it as I don't remember.
Inactive.
Monasca,
inactive is the first step.
Yeah. As a background, if I know, like been working when I was in Tokyo, so Fujitsu company, Japanese company, they were mainly focused on this Monasca thing and all. And once they changed their direction, this project has been like, you know, hanging as just a project without actual user or something.
I'm checking at user survey from results from 2022. There is this patch from me, and Monasca was mentioned there, and there was 5 users in 2022 user survey who said that they are using it. But on the other hand, there was anyone who said that is basically contributing to this project. So there were users but no contributors in 2022, and now gate is broken. I know Fujitsu stepped away from maintaining it. So for me, there is like clearly all of the potential red flags or almost all, which we could hit with this project, we already hit, in my opinion. So I'm not sure how long we want to discuss and how long we want to think if we should mark a project as inactive or not. In my opinion, we should, basically.
I would advise, quite frankly, if you feel that strongly about it, then propose it in governance. And that's sort of the place to get a rubber hits the road opinion about it. If it ends up not landing, then perhaps the fact that it's been proposed may help those users leverage that to get, you know, the ability to maintain it themselves or something, you know, like just putting that up, I don't think is a wrong thing to do if you're at that point where you're 90% sure that that project, it should be marked inactive.
Because last time, like as Slavic investigated, when the same situation was there, like there was no PTL, we wanted to retire and all. So yeah, and in the release also I checked, there was no PTL acknowledgement there. The release team did the release. So I think, yeah, just marking them inactive, and about PTL appointment, maybe yes, if they show up in our PTG session and they understand what the requirement of PTL and if they have time or not, once they acknowledge, I think that we can think. But marking them inactive is the thing that we will keep them open for one cycle once they become active or inactive. But other ways, if there is no PTL, I mean, there is a PTL candidate, if they don't show up or something, we can do retirement also directly, right? So yeah, let's mark it as
one tactic that worked in the bygone era. Matt Trinish would propose himself as PTL for any project that didn't come up with a nominee, and his platform was to retire the project.
That could really backfire, though. But I like it. I mean, I do like it.
You could end up with the task of retiring a dozen projects on your plate. Yeah.
And then very angry people from various other companies that might want to hire you, might have wanted to hire you someday, you know, putting you on some sort of list. But yeah.
Let's mark it inactive anyway. I think we have seen clearly this project is not active, and retirement or not, that definitely we can discuss in PTZ.
Who is going to take the action to propose retirement or inactivity to Manaska?
I can.
Cool. Thanks, Slavic. So I've added this topic in PTZ Etherpad too. So just we don't forget. So as much as we can do cleanup before PTZ, that's good. Otherwise, we will have PTZ as our, you know, the deadline to sort out the things. So yeah, that is all on leaderless project from my side.
All right. I believe I have put that there in the minutes. Feel free to hashtag info something you think should be in the minutes in IRC, just in case I missed something. Thank you very much again for that work. And yeah, we'll get the we'll get all of us to vote on those retirements. So so you know they'll have to not hire all of us. So speaking of positions that people don't want to hire for, this is a renewed call for volunteers for vice chair. Frickler had considered volunteering. I believe part of the reason he chose not to was I did point out that the chair.rst file did document normal behaviors of the chair that a vice chair might have to take the mantle of if I was unable or unavailable or something. And I don't think they were willing to dedicate time or, for instance, maybe moderate a video meeting in order to do it. So in lieu of that, we're currently operating without a stated vice chair. Christy has kindly offered to be a backup in lieu of that, but I do welcome anyone to volunteer. I'm nice and pleasant to work with. I'll send you some ironic socks.
I thought that the vice chair was a purely ceremonial, not actually required as documented position that just kind of like sprung into being at some point. Is that not right?
Position is how I've always seen it. Jay,
Sorry.
what cycle are you? Are you a January?
I was just reelected for the following year, but I stated at my nomination time I did not have an intention to serve more than 6 months as chair.
Okay.
So I am elected through the following year. But I already, quite frankly, had to rearrange work priorities to give myself time to do this job properly. So I would prefer
Okay, so
not
that
have to do that for the
negates the
second half.
suggestion I was gonna make that if you were in August, the vice chair should be in January, just so we have overlapping. But if you're only interested in the 6 months, then we're actually better off having an August person if an August person was willing.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm saying that that's where I feel like at the beginning of the 6 months, maybe I'll get in the swing of it and that opinion could change, but I certainly want us to behave as if I'm only serving a 6-month term.
I think Amy got cut off with the beginning of what she was saying. Was there an answer to my question? Or at least I heard her cut off.
Oh, I was saying that I believe the vice chair is kind of thought as a training position, a backup position, so that if the chair can attend one meeting, the vice chair steps in. If the chair, as Jay has said, is not planning on rerunning, then at least we have someone who is trained up in the position to run.
Yeah. I understand the purpose
Yeah.
of it. I'm just saying I thought that it was not something that we're required to have like chair.
So yeah, that's what I remember 2 years or something back when I proposed to remove the vice chair thing.
Yeah.
And that didn't get approved. So yeah, I don't know, like if vice chair is mandatory we need or something, because chairperson can ask or divert any of the tasks to any of the TC member. Like Jay is going for say 1 week vacation, so he can say, okay, who can can be the board point of contact for board of director, who can run the meeting, right? So that can happen anytime. So I'm always like on the same page that voice share is not mandatory thing for us, but maybe it's just me. Or
yeah. I'll put it this way: regardless of if the TC charter requires vice chair to be filled as a position, I personally, Jay, as serving chair, would feel much more comfortable if I had a specific person who was willing to be that backup, who was willing to, if I have a question about how a policy applies, having someone to bounce that off of, to have a conversation with. Like that's something that I value as a more social person. Maybe if you're not a more social person, that's not the sort of net you need, but that is something that I would strongly prefer have, even if maybe technically in the charter it can stay empty forever. I would strongly prefer a single person step up and say, I'm willing to be that. And if not, then we deal with it. I will, if I have to be gone, then I'll, try to ad hoc find someone to back up. I do worry about that a little bit, because in my experience, when a group of people, especially a group of busy, smart people, are responsible for something, sometimes trying to get one person to commit to something can be difficult, especially in situations like that, which is why I like the pre-volunteering. But I mean, we'll deal with the situation if it comes up. What's up, Bram?
So I don't know how to lower my hand without like disconnecting myself. I'm willing to do it, but not as like if the purpose is to be training, I won't be running again, because the reason why not is that we're running up against the limit of how many Red Hat people can be on the TC. So I've already committed to like making room. So as far as like bouncing ideas off and stuff and like filling in kind of stuff, I can do that. But if it's like a training ground, then I would be inappropriate.
So I'll say this in the same way of that. It's been said that we can have 0 vice chairs. There is precedent for having greater than 1 vice chair. So I'm very happy to accept your volunteering, even if it's not in a training capacity. And I invite anyone who's interested in actions of the chair, who's not served as chair, to come join and learn. I mean, it's interesting the number of things it is. Even in this short time doing vice chair and then this short bit of chair, it's helped a lot in zooming out a little bit from OpenStack and improving my perspective on the project as a whole. So I definitely appreciate that.
So I think you just appoint the vice chair, right? There's no like action required. So I'll
Congratulations, Brian.
Well, thank you. It was a hard fought battle, but I hope we're all still friends.
What I was trying to say was I feel like, you know, if we didn't have Brian, or if we've got Brian now as, well, I'll come up with some adjective later when we're not being recorded for, you know, his status. I just don't think it's worth freaking out about, I guess is my point, making a big deal out of it, being highly concerned that we don't have an assistant to the regional manager kind of thing.
Well, we have to have at least one of you who appreciates my antics. So it's got to be a Dwight, right? So I do appreciate that. And that gets us successfully to the end of that topic. Open discussion. The first item in open discussion was a link to register for the PTG. I think at this point we've all registered, but I will note, as we mentioned on before, I've created Etherpads for potential topics for the PTG. I've created a tracker Etherpad for this cycle, and I would like to ask the TC members to please populate it with issues that you think need discussion or are important. We've already done a good job of unearthing a couple of things here. In addition, I will be sending an email out today proposing exact times for the TC sessions. I would ask, right now we're looking at for last cycle. I apologize, I thought I had this open. So at the last PTG, the sessions that the TC were related to was a community interaction, which was Monday, 1600 to 1800 Universal Time. And then the remaining TC sessions were Thursday and Friday from 1500 to 1900. Those are the times I would like to propose that we keep, and we'll do so via the mailing list today, just so that, it's communicated in a more public way in case other people have input. I would say if you have availability needs that lie outside that, now's a good time to speak up or reach out to me directly afterward if you would like. I have put these proposed times in the TC Etherpad as proposed, so they are there if you want to, read them instead of hearing me read them off.
Yeah, I think Thursday, Friday looks good to me. Just one question for Monday. Like last time, I think in the past we have asked PTL also, like what is their suitable time. So do you want to do that, or we are going to book Monday time? I mean, Monday is mostly project. They have kept it for, all these QA and general stuff thing. But just in case any PTL is not available and they strongly wanted us to schedule on Tuesday or something.
Yeah, that's what I meant when I said I'm going to send an email out about this before I finalize it. Okay. Like, I'm proposing a concrete time because asking what times are people available is an impossible way to do it. So I picked the times from last year as a carryover, as a proposal. I'm going to ask to see if they work with everyone. I might even send a separate email for TC PTG and TC community leaders interaction, and invite people for feedback. But I would like to finalize this preferably by Thursday so that we can billboard some of this at the Open Info Live that we're talking about. So,
yeah. And on that PTG thing, one more thing, like the operator hours. Would you like to continue those, or how we are going to plan? That's also something TC can give a heads up to PTLs.
Okay, thanks for the link. I think we should try one last time for that. just so people got the first impression we were going to do this. They had the second time we did it and nobody showed up. So I think we should do it one last time and then just give up.
I thought that the Nova operator hour at the last physical PTG actually ended up being okay.
Oh, okay, good.
I think we should ask. Were you there, G-Man, or no?
Yeah, I was there. So it was more of like in a bit and pieces, like the PTZ room in this in-person PTZ or summit was really little bit isolated kind of thing. But we had like one or two operator asking question, me, Gibi, and Slavan was there for like half an hour, 1 hour, like that it was happening. Not like we have the 3-4 operator together and we have 10-20 people and discussing. It was not that way.
Well, I guess I didn't think there were that many people there for that, but I remember seeing a picture. Someone took a picture. It's like, look, operators, and because they said they were having a really
discussion. It was the big hypervisor live migration discussion that G Research
that is
with
the
Scott
forum
Sulkin
session.
and John Garbett was at. That was a room that was standing room only at the physical.
No. The picture I'm talking about was at the Nova table amongst a bunch of other tables.
Oh,
okay, I don't know. But operator, like as Jay mentioned, forum session had a lot of operator good feedback and all. Then PTZ, at least. But I agree with Brian. I'm not saying like last time. Maybe for me we can keep trying, but definitely for this PTZ we should schedule something.
Yeah, I should say. I mean, we've had like twice one person has showed up, but that person like got our full attention, and I would like to say fabulous stuff happened, which wasn't quite the case, but we did talk about their concerns.
Because if we see like in future also PT is going to be virtual, right? So that's the way. If we can get those operator used to coming up in virtual event, right? That's the future thing also.
Given I'm doing the planning for the TC PTG sessions, and I also have that for Ironic, if someone else would take the coordination of the operator hour, because I believe last time we did some back and forth with the foundation to have them try to contact to get people to arrive, I would greatly appreciate that being delegated off of my plate.
I can do that.
Thank you, Amy.
So we're just going to announce it. Are we asking them to help us with the time, or are we going to determine the time and then say, this is our operator hour, come join us?
Last VPTG, we asked all the PTLs to schedule an operator hour for their project for Ironic purposes, and we're doing this again this year. We basically have mixed those into bare metal SIG meetings and operator hours at the same time, and that branding has gotten us a little bit more people there because we've held bare metal SIG meetings in the past. And I would suggest that might be the model worth going for at least the major projects. But perhaps if participation is low, there might be some value in like, okay, the 5 or 6 biggest projects maybe have their own, and then we can have like a catch-all OpenStack users where, maybe TC members can volunteer to make sure that, there's some representation there and help out people. And who knows, maybe we'll fish up like a Manaska contributor or someone that way through, giving a venue for people to come about projects that might not have time or ability to organize it of their own. However, this has been delegated to you, Amy. As far as I'm concerned, I trust your opinion and judgment on how you.
Yeah, I mean, but we have to know what we want to ask the foundation to mail out.
So there are two things here. One is like the timing and slot we have to book, like operator hours, and we can ask every project to, reserve those slot, making sure they are not conflicting with, each other related session. And once we have those, the timing and slot available, like Ironic is meeting here this time, Cinder, Noah that time. So then we can start these branding through foundation or social media or mailing list, whatever. So we'll say, okay, no operator, this is the time for operator hours, you can meet, developers here. Cinder operator hours is that time, you can show up there.
Okay,
so
and
maybe
who
the
is
first
asking the PTLs. Am I asking the PTLs to schedule an operator hour, or is someone else doing that?
I'd be very happy for you to send that email, but I'm glad to send the email as well if you'd like. I mean, that to me is just an email to the mailing list.
Oh, that's true. We don't have to target everybody. All right, I'll send an email to the mailing list, and then once we're
So previously, one more thing, like to avoid these conflict between project, what we have done, we have pushed the placeholder for operator hours, like once in a day, so that only one project, or say maybe more than one project, but not related projects, they can schedule operator hours, not the day, I mean the hour, like 13 UTC, we can have just only one operator hours, so that can be booked by either Cinder or Nova or any other project. So that way is one way to avoid these conflict of those, the schedule. But what I would like, I mean, you think if placeholder is good idea, what we tried in past, or any new idea that will
I
be
know we did the
good.
placeholders, and I don't know if that actually helped or didn't help, because people,
It got confused, and so it backfired or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully it will, with that experience.
well, and we're
Feel
also
better this
talking
time.
3 weeks, so we need to figure this out. Let me just email the list, asking all the PTLs to grab one, and don't
First come,
conflict
first
with somebody
basis, like,
else,
yeah.
so that we
And just
can.
mention, like, if there is already a operator hour schedule in that hours, try to avoid
Yeah,
that hours. Yeah.
and to
Cool.
do it within the next week, I would say, just so that we can then give the operators 2 weeks notice to attend.
I did provide NIRC a link to the email that G-Man sent out last PTG about this, and I think it has some of the associated information about how we did it last year inside of it.
Sounds good. I will grab that.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything else that's uncertain, I'm happy to work with you to fill in those gaps. We can guess together.
No, I'm always glad when someone else words things better than I do. So.
So I think that is it for the PTG portion of the open discussion. Did we want, were there any other, here's an item I wanted to bring up for open discussion that came from the chatter from previous to this call. There have been some concern expressed by community members over the use of proprietary Zoom software to hold meetings. It's something that, we've all heard off and on. It's my impression that Jitsi should be good enough now to allow us to join and record our TC meetings there, even if it may not scale up for PTG usage. So if there's no objection, I'm going to take an action item that before our next video meeting that I'll bring a report on, if Jitsi, from at least a standpoint of hosting it and recording the output, seems usable for purposes of TC meetings.
You want objections to whether or not you can generate a report, or objections to moving to Jitsi?
If you're going to say, even if Jitsi's good, let's not use it, then please say that before I expend my time.
That's what I'm saying, but I think I will be in the minority, so I would.
The proprietary tool, you're saying they just TC meeting, people have objection, or not the PTZ? That looks strange to me.
I'll put it to you this way. If there's a technical limitation why we can't use a piece of free or open source software to perform our work, then to me, it's an easy justification for using it. At the point in time, there are free software alternatives which may be able to serve that need, that it's at least reasonable of us to investigate to see if it meets that need. And right now, I think that there's a reasonable consensus that for the scale up required for a PTG, that it can affect things, especially accessibility around people with slower computers. At least that was traditionally the objection. But however, with a meeting the size of the technical committee, that we may be able to swing it. And I just want to know for sure, because if the answer is no, then it becomes a moot point. If the answer is yes, then we actually have a point there to discuss and decide, is it convenience and proprietary, or, maybe something that might have a limitation but is open source.
The only concern I would have, and Fungi and Clark might know the answer to this, is should we have a COC issue or something similar, can we block or ban or kick people out?
The moderator or whatever Jitsi Meet calls it can remove people.
Okay, that would be my only concern about
Whether or
trying.
not they can rejoin, I don't know. I don't know that we've ever tried to test that from like a that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we made the same decision with the same concern for CentOS board. So we are using Meet, and we made sure that non-Red Hat people could start the meeting, that, you know, we could boot people and so on and so forth. I'm not saying Meet's the answer to this, but that was a concern that we did test.
Yeah,
I'll
so
just
go ahead.
Hey, Clark. No, go ahead.
I would say whoever starts the Jitsi Meet meeting is elevated to like the moderator or whatever they call it, and then there's the option where the people are. You can say remove this person. You can mute them. So you have that tool, but whether or not they can just rejoin from like Firefox instead of Chrome, and then the cookies are different, I don't know how robust it is.
And I'll just say, either Meet or Zoom, I would much prefer over the other. From even with 9 people or 9 video tiles, performance is a whole lot better. And I've also got lots of integrations with both of them that make things a lot easier for me. So I don't have any philosophical objections, but I definitely have a preference. So
yeah, the accessibility thing has definitely sharp edges on both sides, right? Like making it so that people can access without having to use proprietary software, give data to Zoom or whatever is useful. But also if that makes the tooling worse such that it's actually harder for people to participate, we don't want to do that. So
yeah, especially for the people that do participate regularly, right? Like I feel like you have to optimize for that and not the drive-by. I think that having the dial-in option, I don't know why that doesn't, I mean, yeah, you know, Zoom is going to have your voice, but we're going to post this on YouTube. So I feel like the phone dial-in option should be the accessibility option for anybody who doesn't want to run their software on their computer.
Yeah, I think even given that feedback, I'll get the information because it'll be useful to know. It'll be a useful conversation to have. I think I've been one of the people who's, you know, in the past said that I wish we integrated with things like GitHub better because that accessibility matters. There's a very similar axis of choice. So it'll be fun to get the information. I'll take the action and see. If nothing else, I'll get to play with Jitsi and web browsers for a few minutes, try to crank up every computer in the house and get a webcam going and see if I can generate some load.
Clark, do you know if Jitsi, I imagine it's not able, but can set the QoS bit on its packets like Zoom can?
There is some, I don't know if it's like at the packet level, but there are options for various performance related things. But yeah, I don't know at what level in the network it can do that.
Okay. Zoom does, and it's very nice for those of us
I will
that
specifically make a note of that.
Thank you.
That's a good point. Specifically make a note of that. QoS bit packets.
It's just WebRTC that Jitsi Mate uses, so that might also be like a browser, right? So Jitsi may not have that visibility, right? They're all at layer 7. You might need the actual browser to expose that functionality to you.
Right.
It's still a fun question to ask. This, you know, it's like it's rare that I get an action item here that I would think would be fun, and playing with Jitsi Meet for an hour on a couple of computers sounds like an absolute ball. So I'll dig down in that. We'll see if we can get it to set QoS bits on packets, see if it makes my laptop sound like a rocket ship if we get, you know, 14 videos connected. I don't know what the answer is going to be, but, you know, my output of this is just going to be an Etherpad with some notes. And if someone wants to take that to make a proposal, they're welcome to. quite frankly, I'm not sure that that's something that I would necessarily worry about proposing personally, but I do want the information because I think it's useful to know. So we're 3 minutes after time. Was there any things we did get started a couple minutes late? Did anyone want to say anything else for open discussion before we close? Yep. That's it for the TC meeting. Thank you everyone for joining. I'll get this up on YouTube in the next 48 hours or so.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all. Bye.